All right. We talked about the Boneyard that the Boneyard wins, Northern Illinois collects. This was a huge, huge upset. So it got us thinking we should power rank the biggest upsets in college football history. These are our power rankings presented by Citibank. And listen, there's only one option for number one. App State over Michigan. Joshua could not have responded faster in the group chat being like, yes, we need to talk about Michigan losing to App State.
I mean, you were at the game. Well, first off, it's actually hilarious. I was at a rest stop in the middle of Indiana when that text came through. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, perfect timing. I pull it over, like, let's go. So, yes, you were at this game. So I want to get your perspective of, like, the range of emotions as you're watching that.
Yeah, so this is unreal. So I'll start off by saying I grew up in Central Jersey, entirely pro sports area, pro sports market. Like we were, unfortunately, Jets fans. But Yankees, like we only cared about pro sports. I grew up 20 minutes from Rutgers, and I never went to a Rutgers game until I was covering college football, like professionally. So I end up going to Michigan, and it's mostly because I get guilted there because my aunt and uncle live in Ann Arbor. I was the oldest of my family. We never visited them. Why don't you apply and come to Michigan? It's great, blah, blah, blah. So I end up there. And this is my first game as a freshman. So it is not just my first Michigan college football game. This is my first college football game ever because I grew up going to NFL games. So I am all excited. Michigan's number 5 in the country. You had Chad Henne come back, Mike Hart come back, Jake Long come back. Everyone comes back trying to win a national championship. I missed the 1-2 game, the Michigan-Ohio State game, missed a Rose Bowl, but everyone's like, all right, this is the year. We're coming all the way back to win a national title. And then you go to this game. First of all, I'm also not prepared for, it's 90 something degrees. It's super humid. You're in a student section where you have to stand the whole time, which didn't know because again, first college game. And I'm like dehydrated. I'm a little faint. I'm watching a game that I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to go. I'm with people I don't know because it's assigned seating and it's just so quiet. Like that is the thing that I remember so much about, during the game as you're kind of like, wait, this can't really be happening. Can it? And then you have some hope. Okay, they're going to avoid it. Nope, they don't. Game is over and it is silent. There was like a 30-minute walk back up through campus in the sea of Mays fans back to my dorm room. And it was hot and silent. And like, that's just, I just remember the silence most of all. And it was stunning. And then of course, like I'm, the only person who went to Michigan out of like all of my friends. So then the phone is blowing up. Everyone's texting you. It's historic. You're seeing videos of like the reaction of Penn State fans, Ohio State fans, like at their games. But it was just unreal. And then, the immediate first thing I did was like, I was so excited to have a student season ticket, like t-shirt. But then I was like, I can't wear this ever again. It says App State right on the top of the back of the shirt. I had to burn it. I had to get rid of it.
Oh, man, what a time to be alive. I will say this about the Big House is it's not, even in the best environments, it's not the loudest place in the world because it's shallow. The build of the stadium. But I've played there in a blowout where my team was winning. That place gets real quiet. Like it
does.
It's an interesting thing. I remember the reactions off of this game as well. And the video still holds up to this day of the way the end of that game went. Like it was phenomenal. But like certainly one of the most memorable upsets in any sport for me.
Yes. So that's number 1 for our list. I'll just list off the rest in case you're not watching on YouTube. But number 2, we got Stanford over USC in 2007. USC heavy favorites in that game. That was a stunner. 2017, Howard defeating UNLV. This was the largest point spread upset in college football history, 45-point underdogs. And Howard pulls it off. This was actually the first time I talked to Brennan Marion and that go-go offense that he runs, which is, he has now, he has taken that to a number of different schools and is at UNLV of all places right now, helping to rebuild there. Number 4, JMU beating Virginia Tech all the way back in 2010. So this was like JMU is a power, but
Yep.
they're still at a lower level. They're not
Yep.
quite like the household name that they are now, where we expect that kind of football success from them. And then Joshua, this one is for you. Number 5, we put Purdue beating number 2 Ohio State in 2018. Now, this might not be on everyone's like all-time upset list, but the way that game felt and the way that it happened at Purdue, like this was in the era where Ohio State sometimes did this.
Yes.
And, and you go into an environment like a Purdue environment, all the narratives coming into this game, and that happened. It was a stunner. That was a Tyler Trent game, correct?
Yes.
As well.
Yep. And so like that's why I pushed for this one at the end. First off, for all the Ryan Day can't win the big one talk, like Urban had some real nasty losses in terms of upsets there. But this was the number 2 team in the country. They weren't favored by a ton. Like I think it was a 2-touchdown favorite in this game, but they end up losing the game by a bunch of points. Was a 29-point loss or whatever it was there. They forced Dwayne Haskins into throwing the ball like 70 times in that game because they were playing catch up from the jump. But it was the Tyler Trent thing that really made this feel like it was a destiny victory for Purdue, where you've got one of their biggest super fans who is going through some real medical issues, who is at that game. And it felt like everything was destined for Purdue to be able to muster up, not just an upset, but like one in very dominant fashion. And so I wanted to put that up there. The other one I want to talk about real quick is this Stanford USC in 2007. It's Pete Carroll, and this is kind of like the end of the USC run as one of the national powers. And you've got this guy named Jim Harbaugh who's there at Stanford. And, he's former college NFL quarterback. He was at San Diego, kind of small school coach. What's he going to do with Stanford? And this was really when Stanford started their run of being a team that was nationally prominent, playing in Rose Bowls. And that situation kind of in their new era of success. And so I think the contrasting trajectories of those schools intrigues me. The JMU one, Virginia Tech was one of those schools back in the day that was like, hey, man, this is going to be a nationally relevant program. And it kind of started the beginning of the end for them, too. So some of these upsets almost like mark changes in eras for some of the schools.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that for Michigan definitely did. They lost to Oregon the next week. That convinced the powers that be, you've got to go get a spread offense coach. They hire Rich Rod. That was my era at Michigan. It was started with App State and it ended with the Brady Hoke hire. Like those were
That's a tough era.
Jeez, it is the losingest stretch of Michigan football history either. You would be
so we
happy.
Can attribute that to you then.
Yeah, I might not have been great luck for Michigan. But I was present at the national championship game last year and they still won that. Wow. So maybe it's turned around.